Okay, so our topic for today, as we said, is eating things in the middle of the meal which do not belong to the meal. Yeah, eating or drinking, okay? If I have whiskey at the end of the meal, if I have dessert, in the middle of the meal, yeah. In the middle of the meal. I eat bread, I finish all the chicken and everything, and then so that's a good question if dessert is part of the meal or not. So we'll it's a cultural thing. But let's see the halacha, and we'll try to bring it to a practice. Now, before we begin, I will say that I wouldn't say it's the most complicated halachot we have, because we have much more complicated halachot. But probably from all of the relevant halachot, it is the most complicated halachot. So from the halachot we meet every week, or maybe some of us every day, it's the most complicated halachot because we have a lot of machlokot, a lot of arguments. So we'll try to give, okay, so what do we do? Unfortunately, in machlokot, many times we like to say, that's the halacha, that's it. And then here, because it's brachot, so we'll say sfek brachot, there's a machloket, sfek brachot leakel. It's harder to have a definite answer in this topic. We learned in the past about ikar v'tafel. If something is more important and something is less important, so we say one bracha on the most important thing. And the typical example was when we have a mixture or two things that we eat together, right? We have cereal and milk. What's more important? Usually the cereal, right? So cereal is more important. We have a Greek salad together with mixed olives and cheese, okay? So the vegetables usually will be more important. But we have bread, and on it we have something. But typically, the ikar v'tafel will be something that is eaten all together as a mixture. Or, and we saw that example in the past. That, by the way, if it's too cold, so we can turn off the air conditioner. But so we saw the example. Well, I think it depends how you make. I heard from someone who was in Greek.
Vegetables are a common denominator in every salad. So what makes a salad special? A Greek salad, a halloumi salad, is the extra thing that you put on.
Yeah, but still, the most important thing is usually the vegetables. It's also the majority. It's the majority. Yeah, yeah.
Halloumi salad. You look forward to those bites.
Right. So you look forward for it, but it's still called a salad.
It's also based on what you like there. Let's say you're not crazy about salad, but you love the cheese.
So usually we'll go by the majority, besides special cases. Yeah. Besides if the minority is not. But we saw another example of if I eat, like say, sardines, and I don't want to eat bread. I don't eat the bread at all. My whole point is just eating the sardines, and the whole point I'm eating the bread is just so I can swallow the sardines. So even if I eat the bread afterwards, so it's ikar v'tafel. Okay. Here by bread, in the middle of the meal, we have all of a sudden something which is different. We eat bread in the middle of the meal. We eat challah. We eat a kazait, maybe, or some of us will eat more kazait. And what my wife just told me that she follows someone who hosted this last Shabbat 40 people from China, and they finished altogether 6 kilos of challah. So that's quite a bit of challah. And the adventure was that they ate it with a knife and a fork. Okay, but we have some. Even if we eat a lot of challah, we finish the challah, we take the challah off the table. We'll eat salads, we'll eat fish, we'll eat soup, we'll eat chicken, green beans, whatever. None of that will be eaten together with challah. Sometimes some of it will be the hummus, the chopped liver. Some of them will be. Some of us dip the challah in the soup. Most of us won't have chicken or meatballs or whatever with challah. So how come all of a sudden when it comes to challah or bread, we say hamotzi in the beginning of the meal, and then we say, okay, everything now is exempt. We don't need to say a bracha now. Yeah, why is that?
Special status.
Why?
That's all they had to eat. Because of them, source of it is mentioned in the
so it's
brings in the wheat and the yain, bring in the Shabbat.
So it's mentioned in the Torah, okay, right? And it's a cultural thing, maybe of the main part of the meal.
People who still will keep some of the bread and use it during the whole meal.
That's true. Some people, especially if you eat with a pita or something like that, so you'll eat your meat together with it. That's true. But from
Stuffed chicken.
Yeah, that stuffed chicken is I think it's a question. What bracha is similar to lichor? It will be shakol, although it has challah inside it. Yeah,
Which food?
Stuffed chicken or meatballs. Schnitzel will be also shakol, although it has. We talked about it in the past.
Bread though, stuffed chicken. You stuff chicken.
Yeah.
You really see pieces.
Okay, so if you see pieces of challah, that might be different. Okay. Yeah. Anyway, so how come here all of a sudden we ate bread in the beginning of the meal, and from now on we say everything now is exempt from the challah? And the answer, as you said, challah is or bread, not necessarily challah. It's here for us to be satisfied. That's the main part, maybe in the psychological way of the meal, even in the Torah. Yaakov Avinu asks, "V'natani lechem ne'echol u'begel lilvosh." He wants bread to eat, right? Lechem is the name for bread. Lechem, bread, is the name for a meal. That's what we eat, and everything else goes part of it. So even if we don't eat it together, if the food comes to satisfy us, so we say hamotzi in the beginning, and lechem means a meal. Yeah, so that everything goes afterward. That's why bread has a special bracha. Hamotzi lechem min haaretz, because it's such an important thing. It's not just mezonot. It's not just baked cake. It's a kviat seuda. It's something important. When we learned in the past about the differences between bread and cake, so we said that cake is basically just very sweet bread. The difference between them is that bread, if you call it, is a cake that we kovea seuda on it, that we make it to be the main part of the meal. Okay, so that's why we have challah in the beginning of the meal, and although we will have it just for the first few minutes because we are on a diet, right, and we have to keep ourselves. And afterwards we'll have all the other junk, but at the beginning we have only one bite of challah because we're on a diet. We say hamotzi in the beginning, and everything afterwards will be exempt.
Flour, as opposed to cake, which could have 19 different ingredients.
Yeah. Yeah, we learned about it that we patava bekisnin. It looks like it's baked like bread, but the reason it is not bread because people are not kovea and not seuda. They don't make that the main part of the meal. Why? Because it has sugar inside it. It's filled up with something. Okay, but the thing behind it is that that's the main part of the meal. That isn't the main part of the meal. And now we can go into this siman. Okay, now that we learned that why something will be yotze by the bread. Now you can understand why things might not be exempt by the bread. So we are in siman kuf ein zayin 177. Okay, and I'll just read a few sentences just to get the general logic in the Shulchan Aruch. So says the Shulchan Aruch in the first saif, דברים הבאים מחמת סעודה. דברים הבאים בתוך הסעודה. Things that come in the middle of the meal. The middle of the meal. אם הם דברים הבאים מחמת הסעודה. If there are things that come because of the meal. Let's remember this definition. It comes because of the meal, which means it comes to satisfy us, not to give us just a good taste. It comes to satisfy us. If it comes to satisfy us, so why does bread come? Satisfy. So also chicken, okay. Oh, we have a few minutes in between, and we sang a song. We said the Dvar Torah in between, and the challah finished by the time we got to the chicken. Both of them kind of satisfy us, so it's a part of the bread. And Shulchan Aruch says, "Dehainu." What does it mean? דברים שדרך לקבוע סעודה עליהם. Okay, ללפת בהם את הפת. That's the normal way people make it to be the main part of the meal, and usually they eat it with bread. Like, and he gives an example, like meat and fish and eggs and vegetables and cheese and also other things, even daisa. How do you say daisa in American? Oatmeal, oats, right? Usually people don't eat it together with bread, right? There's even a saying in the Gemara that the people from Babel, they used to have it together with bread. And one of the Amoraim says, Hani Bavlai Tipshai, those stupid people from Babel who eat bread with bread. Okay? They eat the oatmeal together with bread. You don't eat bread together with bread. But even that, even daisa, which is not eaten together with bread, it has the same goal of the bread, to make us satisfied. Therefore, we say hamotzi in the beginning, and that's it. And everything afterwards is exempt. And the Shulchan Aruch continues, ואם הם דברים הבאים שלא מחמת הסעודה, if those things are not because of the meal, okay, they don't come to satisfy us, and he gives the example, a definition and then an example. דהיינו, דברים שאין דרך לקבוע סעודה עליהם, ללפת בהם את הפת. Usually we do not make that the main part of the meal and we eat it together with bread. And he gives an example like figs and grapes and all other fruit. Okay, there's always a question: is a tomato, is it a fruit or a vegetable? So for here, it's a vegetable, right? We eat it together with bread, right? But other fruit, bananas, other fruit. So typically, the aren't exempt from the bracha of hamotzi. So says the Shulchan Aruch, אם אוכל אותם בלא פת, if he eats it the normal way, without bread, ברכת המזון אינה פוטרתן, דלאו מעיקר סעודיים. ברכת המזון doesn't exempt it. It's not, because it's not part of the meal. It's not part of the main part of the meal. But here we have interesting halacha. What about ברכת המזון? If we have desserts, before we say ברכת המזון, do we have to say בורא נפשות on the desserts, on the watermelon we had? So we don't say Birkat Hamazon, right? None of us, I think, say Birkat Hamazon after we have a bunch of strawberries or watermelon in the summer, right? So we have this interesting just to see the difference between Birkat Hamotzi, what's the role of Hamotzi, and what's the role of Birkat Hamazon. So Shulchan Aruch continues, and afterwards we'll explain the difference. ואינם טעונים ברכה לאחריהם. We don't say a bracha afterwards. Why? ברכת המזון, פוטרתם. Because מכיוון שבאו בתוך הסעודה, since they came in the meal, ברכת המזון פוטרתם. ברכת המזון exempted. The Shulchan Aruch continues here. What happens if I eat it with bread in the beginning and with bread afterwards? Since I think most of us do not eat the fruit with bread or without bread, we'll go to other topics. Okay. But we can see here first the difference between hamotzi and birkat hamazon. Hamotzi, or any other bracha, I should say the bracha rishona, the first bracha on the ikar, on the most important thing, and everything which follows it, it's tafel. So everything which is part of the meal and it comes to make us satisfied is included in the bracha of hamotzi. Okay, birkat hamazon is a wider thing. Okay, birkat hamazon is not just on bread. Birkat Hamazon is for any food we eat, so it's included in Birkat Hamazon. We say Birkat Hamazon only when we eat bread, but the general idea of Birkat Hamazon is thanking Hashem for all of the food we ate. Therefore, anything which was eaten in the middle of the meal is exempt by Birkat Hamazon. It's included in Birkat Hamazon. Just to give us an idea, what bracha do we say on cake? And afterwards, Alamichya. What's the name of Alamichya? What's another name for Alamichya? Me'ein Shalosh. What's Me'ein Shalosh? Like the 3 brachot. Which 3 brachot are we talking about? Of Birkat Hamazon, right? So Birkat Hamazon, it's such an important bracha, it's said only when we have bread. But as soon as we say Birkat Hamazon, it really includes all of the food we eat. So we need bread to trigger Birkat Hamazon. As soon as we say Birkat Hamazon, it includes everything.
What about if you're hungry and let's say you have no bread around, but you have a Entenmann's pound cake? You eat the whole thing, and you knew you were going to until you became satisfied.
So if you eat cake,
and you had a wash.
Yeah, so if you eat cake, so it's like as a kviat seuda, yeah. If we eat a big amount of cake, we say hamotzi in the beginning and Birkat Hamazon at the end.
Well, how do you know you're going to eat a big
Well, some of us sometimes are hungry.
That's their
Yeah,
meal.
some
You're
that's your
in a
meal.
hotel, there's no kosher food around, but you have some Entenmann's you picked up at the airport,
Yeah.
and boom, bread.
Right.
You can eat it as your supper.
It's sometimes easier to buy cake and.
I do it all the time.
There you go.
Okay.
Glad I asked.
Okay. So when you know you'll eat a lot of cake, and that will be your meal, and that will make you satisfied, and you eat more than 4 bitzim, which how much is it? So then you say hamotzi and Birkat Hamazon, and you wash your hands. It's bread.
Quite a topic, but very easy to get away the whole week without saying good for someone.
Right, it's true. It's very easy to
Which
get
is
it.
not quite right, really.
What's this not right?
No,
This is not
if I eat,
Birkat Hamazon is skula for parnasah. Why would anyone want to try to avoid it if he's not
No, but I know
some people, let's say eat rice. Let's say eat rice.
It's the bread that they have these days.
We discussed, I think, there was not pieces of bread, and
Yeah, but
many poskim, and I think I can't say I'm the right, but I think they're right. Hold that there's no such thing, or there's hardly such. I think there's.
It's a shame.
That's a good question. Why? Yeah.
I don't deliberately avoid it, but most of the day I don't have bread.
Yeah.
I have bread for breakfast.
I think
Today the culture has
But
changed
you
also a
understand
bit.
that Birkat Hamazon is such a great skula for parnasah. You should have it once a day. You should really try. What's the point? It's 2-3 minutes to say Birkat Hamazon.
Yeah, but it's not part of my meal.
Yeah. Today people like cereal and milk. That for some people that's what they eat.
Breakfast.
That's breakfast.
And you
And-
should
and
wash
then-
your hands on it. Oh,
No,
sure.
no. But that's why people won't eat bread, because they eat cereal and milk. Okay, let's
said that hamotzi does not exempt. We need to say a separate bracha on peirot.
on Perot, right?
Right, but does that include anything like Entenmann's cake after the meal or any?
Cake, we'll get to it very soon, hopefully. Okay.
So
I'm
why
actually,
don't we just-
let's answer.
But don't talk about it.
Okay, let's talk about cake now. Let's talk about
Okay.
cake now. And we have, so fruit, it's to summarize beforehand. If I eat grapes, I say borei pri ha'etz. If I eat strawberries, I'll say borei pri ha'adama. If I have ice cream, I'll say shakol beforehand. Anything which is, it comes just for the sweet feeling and not as a part of the meal, not to satisfy us, that will be shakol, ha'etz, adama, whatever. What about cake? Okay, now cake is a question. That brings us to what I think Danny just mentioned beforehand. Is cake bread or no? Is cake bread? If cake is bread, so even if the regular time are sinot mezonot for different reasons, but it's a kind of bread. Just since I'm not kovea seuda on it, so I'll say on it mezonot. But here, when I eat cake in the middle of the meal, so maybe like the fact that it's in the middle of the meal and had bread beforehand, maybe it links and takes out the bread potential out of it. So we have here machloket. And some will give all sorts of options, maybe to, before you eat a piece of cake, have bisli. Why bisli? Bisli isn't cooked. It's fried. So it's not baked. It's cooked, or it's fried, which is cooked in halacha terms, and that's mamash not bread. Okay, bisli, and it doesn't come to satisfy us. Typically, it comes just for the taste of it. So some will say, have a bit of bisli before you eat a piece of cake. You don't like this idea because it's a safek here. Some will say maybe have a waffle, because a waffle is so thin, it's not considered bread at all. So, and then you say not mezonot, and then eat a piece of cake. There's a machloket here. There's a few opinions in the Rishonim. The Rashba seems to say that anything which, in the end, it comes to satisfy us. In the end, okay, it's mezonot, mezin, it satisfies. It even if it's a cake, it'll be exempt by Birkat Hamotzi. Okay, so that's seems the Rashba. There are other opinions who might say that you have to say on it mezonot, especially if it's like a rogalach. It's also filled, and also the dough itself is sweet. Okay, so there are opinions like that. Since it's a sfek brachot, and since there are Rishonim who say that if you don't say on it mezonot, so my minhag is not to say on it mezonot. I think I told you once that I sat together at the table with my Rosh Hashiva, and they brought for desserts, they brought a yeast cake with chocolate, and as soon as they brought it, so I looked at him carefully to see what he does, and he didn't say on it mezonot. And just to make sure that I actually got it correct, I asked him, "Do you say a bracha on it?" He said, "No, it's mezonot, it's cake, and then it's a kind of bread, and also and that may be also, Arnold, I think that's what you also meant. Many times we think of cake also as something which comes to satisfy us, or sometimes, depending on what age we are, we do the opposite calculation. We aren't 100% filled up. We know we have desserts. We'll stop eating and save room for the desserts because we don't want to overeat, and the desserts will come as part of the satisfaction. So
Let's say Brachot on the- do that all the time.
what?
All the time.
Yeah, Birkat Hamazon. No, you don't say Birkat Hamazon on cake unless you eat a very big amount.
They're using it to fill yourself.
Right. If I eat a small amount of cake and a lot of vegetables, so there's no Birkat Hamazon.
So you say eat the cake because if you know you're going to eat a whole cake and that's your dinner, you say Birkat Hamazon.
Yeah. If I know,
Before you
yeah,
say hamotzi.
yeah,
Say hamotzi.
yeah.
So what if you're going to eat something else that you don't say? Say you're going to all you have to eat is chocolate.
Okay. So if all so we so
All
it's
you're going to eat.
yeah.
And that's your whole meal.
So first go to, I guess Daniel's asked you, you can't eat chocolate for a meal. That's not a meal. But no, only bread has a bracha of hamotzi. Only bread. And cake or baked goods, baked coming from the 5 grains, might be considered also bread. Okay, especially if we have big quantities. Okay, so then
How
it's
is it?
bread.
Say shahakol, you're just eating
So
chocolate.
so if I'm just in chocolate,
Do you say Birkat Hamazon
No.
if you're done?
no, just shakol and nefashot.
But you have
Yeah.
a big bowl of pasta and it fills you up with.
Okay, so pasta is cooked, so it will always be mezonot. It will never
Okay.
be shakol because it's cooked. Just to remind us of something that we learned in the past, or just remind ourselves to say hamotzi and birkat hamazon, we need to eat also for an amount of 4 eggs, and also to be satisfied. If let's say I need to be satisfied by 6 eggs, a volume of 6 eggs, and I eat a volume of 4 eggs of cake, plus to feel a bit of healthy, so I eat a bit of lettuce salad and a bit of green beans, and at the end I'm satisfied. So then, since I'm also satisfied, and also I had a volume of 4 eggs of cake, then I'll say hamotzi also, hamotzi and birkat hamazon. Okay. What about drinks? Okay, what about drinks? So we mentioned in the past, do we say a bracha on drink in the middle of the meal? Don't we say a bracha on drink in the middle of the meal? I think today also, because the culture has changed, and also because we follow the Rishonim and Sfek Brachot, if we have a drink in the middle of the meal, we do not say shakol or whatever. We don't say shakol. Besides, if we have wine, then we say borei pri hagafen. It's something important. Or tova metiv if we had already a second cup, like we learned last week.
And this goes to after dinner drinks like a liqueur.
Okay, yeah, so that's a great question. Okay, right, that's a great question. What happens? Oh, this Zoom got lost. One moment. I'll just a moment. So what happens if we have a cup of liqueur or cup of tea at the end of the meal? Maybe we should actually learn before in the halacha. We don't have a lot of time, so we'll just mention it very, very fast. In the times of the Gemara and the times of the Mishnah, it was very common in those big parties that they used to eat the meal and then clear up everything and stays to schmooze for quite a bit of time. I think it happens also a bit in the States, right? But in the States, we still consider it as part of the meal. We still have desserts. If someone has a bit of bread in front of him and he gets hungry, he might take a bite. Then they usually used to clear up everything. So it's before Birkat Hamazon, right? Typically, but it's really, really not part of the meal. Okay? It's not part of the meal. So so here, whatever I eat then, I say a bracha also beforehand and also afterwards, because whatever I eat then, it's not part of the meal. It's not part of the meal. So we have here an example that something can be in the meal technically, but really it has a different status. Today, we don't have it so much. What we do have sometimes is maybe we have a cup of tea at the end of the meal. We have a bit of whiskey, a liqueur at the end of the meal. And And Birkat Hamazon, לכאורה, we don't have to say ברכה האחרונה. Birkat Hamazon will include also what we had then, because then it's part of the meal. We don't really clear up everything. But what about a bracha beforehand? What about the bracha beforehand? And so what do you think? If I have a bit of whiskey, do I say a bracha beforehand or no? Depends on the whiskey. That's a
Oh,
okay.
it's a l'chaim.
Okay. So it depends on the whiskey. What?
It's
Okay.
l'chaim. Why did you say it?
So if we have it in the middle of the meal, okay, it's part of the meal. We have whiskey together with the fish, meat, whatever it will be. So it's part of the tea together with the meal, juice. That's part of the meal, part of the food. We do not say a bracha beforehand, obviously also not afterwards. What happens if we have it at the end of the meal? And that's a halacha which people I think don't know.
Before you said Birkat
And before we say Birkat Hamazon, right? If we say Birkat Hamazon, there's no question here. Obviously, we have to say a bracha. If the point of it is to help take the food down and maybe clear out our throat, take the food down and maybe help digest, so it's part of the meal. It's considered part of the meal. But if the whole purpose of drinking it is for the taste of it, and I think usually when we have whiskey or tea at the end of the meal, it's just for the taste of it, because we finished eating over it. It's not part. We finished eating it. We cleared up the table. We're having now tea, coffee, or whiskey. So we should say shakol because it's not part of the meal. We should say shakol. Why isn't it so common? We learned, I think it was 2 weeks ago, that when we say Borei Pri Hagafen, it includes any drink that we'll have afterwards. Usually, when do we have times that we clear up the table, we're finished eating, and then we have a drink? Usually it happens on Shabbat, right? On Shabbat, usually we say Kiddush, we have Kiddush, we say Hagafen before the meal, and automatically, as soon as we said Hagafen, it includes everything we drink. So, on a regular day, if we didn't have wine in the beginning of the meal and we have just this whiskey, tea at the end of the meal, and the whole purpose of it is not because we are thirsty, not because we want the food to go down. On the internet here. Why is it? So
have to do where you have it. Let's say you have
at the table. At the table.
But sometimes people retire to the study or to the living room and have that
Right.
clearly signify
So
that it's not.
if we move, that's for sure.
out.
We say shakol afterwards, and maybe even bracha achona, maybe. If we have 1 minute before we need to go to Marv. So on a regular day, if we finish the meal, we finished eating, and now we have a drink just for the taste of it, we should say shakol. On Shabbat, because we had wine beforehand, so the wine includes all of the drinks that we will have, and therefore we will not say shakol. Okay? So